Wake up from the dream of my childhood to an adult life full of have-tos and must-dos, broken friendship and everlasting trying to make connections. I wish I could go back to the days and just hug each one of those people one last time.
Yes, and we're recording. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeehaw! I promised to someone I would do that. Ooh, hello and welcome back to Hearts Wide Open, the podcast for men. And that's it, because it is.
I was not prepared for intro.
This intro is getting harder and harder every time, I feel. Yeah, because our podcast is also developing, dude. Like, when we started, I think it was like you and I, we would sit down before we even started the podcast and we would have meaningful, deep conversations with each other.
Yeah.
And at some point, we're like, we should record this because it can be valuable to others.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did.
I think so.
And now we have, 17 episodes out?
I think so. Ooh.
And yeah, I feel the intro is getting harder because I feel it's developing. Like the podcast is developing.
Yeah.
And maybe things change.
Yeah, but why do you think it's becoming harder, the intro?
Because in the beginning I would say, welcome to Hearts Wide Open, the podcast for vulnerable men or for men who want to explore themselves. That was then like later. And then, yeah, I mean, in the beginning it was just two dudes sitting down to have a conversation. And then now that we have a bunch of listeners, we're like, I feel like, okay, we also want to develop, make it more and more valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're like the podcast for vulnerable men.
Yeah.
We're the podcast for men who want to explore themselves, learn how to self-express, become more healthy.
Okay, so
Like-
the part... Is it the part that you want to label the podcast that is becoming more difficult, or?
Yeah, exactly, because it's becoming so much more than I thought in the beginning. And now it's
I
harder
see.
to put that into words.
Yeah, well, when you started is the podcast for men, I was thinking, well, we actually still have a lot of women listeners.
We do.
And I think a lot of people could still take away a lot of stuff from this thing that we talk about. So
Yeah.
next time, just welcome to Hearts Wide Open. Maybe
Yeah.
we shouldn't label it.
Ooh, nice one. Just
Yeah.
keep it open and let...
Just keep your hearts open.
Hearts wide open. At the same time, I do feel like we're at least speaking from the experience of two men.
That is correct.
So it may be harder for some people who identify as women to kind of identify themselves with us.
Well, depends. I think a lot of the problems that we talk about are common, in my opinion. Well, most of the experience that I personally talk about is from the point of view of a guy that moved to another country and had to start a lot of stuff from the beginning, which I think if you're a girl, you still will go through the same process. Yeah, probably you have different experiences because then you have to make girlfriends. You have to meet different guys, for example.
Yeah.
So in that sense might be different, but I think the process is different, but I think the goals are the same, and I think the challenges to some extent might be the same.
Yeah. I think some things I think are probably actually overlapping. Other things maybe less.
Yeah.
And for the things that are not overlapping, I don't know, maybe you'd agree with that, but at least they're interesting to the other as well.
I think so.
Because we're mostly facing like male problems, let's say, in that sense, that we're also addressing, like toxic masculinity, not talking about your feelings, men don't cry. And maybe this is more easy for women who are like, it's closer to the female energy to show your feelings, be vulnerable, these type of things. But it's interesting for women to understand the male perspective and for male to also understand the woman other side.
I had a conversation about this last night, actually.
Yeah? Like, is there anything interesting, any findings you want to share?
I was talking with a friend of mine, and we were having this discussion that it was about finding group of friends when you move to actually a new country.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying I have a lot of girls that are my friends.
Yeah.
And I have a few guy friends, but they are deeper friends.
Yeah.
I think quality-wise, I think I have deeper guy friendships, but maybe quantity-wise, I have more girls that are my friends.
Okay.
And she was saying what she was saying is that it is actually makes sense that if you ask, for example, girl, for her, making deeper connection as a guy to the opposite sex was more interesting, because in her mind, if you want their opinion, if you want to see the world from their perspective, then it's better to understand from a different sex's perspective. And the content was about dating, so actually I should have probably said about this. So if you want to know what the girl think about you, probably or what they think about your dress or what we're wearing, probably better to ask your girlfriends what do they think about your dress.
Yeah, maybe, but also depends a bit.
This was her opinion.
If you're looking at like fashionable and what's attractive to the other gender, maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, dressing yourself can also be about expressing yourself, and then maybe your best dude friend.
No, I know. That's why.
What's your style?
That's why when I said if you want to attract someone, then maybe it's better to ask the other sex's opinion, because it's like a backdoor.
Yeah. At the same time, dressing up, etc. It's always also a bit subjective.
Yeah.
But I get the point. Interesting. Yeah. And I think it's still like it's very interesting how this whole podcast changed. Also now, like, we're really on a schedule. We're recording regularly. Yes. We're having guests on, which I find extremely interesting as well. And one of the things I actually observed with having guests on is that I told you this also before, but I feel like when we have a guest here in this space, I prefer the quality of the episodes more sometimes, and I feel like it feels like I don't know, it feels easier to create better episodes when there's a third person. And so that's why I was struggling also in the preparation for this episode, because I was like, let's not prepare. Let's just let it flow authentically and talk about what's there. Maybe talk about the podcast for a little bit, our journey. But I also wanted to explore this with you. Like, why is it that?
I think it might feel easier because then a lot of the burden of content creation is on the shoulder of the guest, I think. Because if you invite someone to be on your show, they probably have something to talk about.
Yeah.
And then you're only there as a role of a facilitator to make sure things go according to the schedule, things are on time, explore a little bit the topic that the person wants to talk about. Maybe come up with some question. If you have something interesting, you can also, of course, add. But I think the main core of that episode will shape around the story that that person has to say. And we as the host are in a role of more of an incubation when we have a guest.
So when we're with the two of us only, then the pressure on the content side,
is on
value is more on us.
Yeah.
And we see each other a lot.
Yeah, well, if you want to.
And okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's interesting experience to go into this with like very minimum preparation. Yeah. Now, and it's an experiment as well, because in life we cannot always be prepared.
That is correct.
So let's see how it goes. If it's really shit episode, we might not release it, but then you're not gonna hear this. So let's see.
And if you do, if you were here until now,
maybe
it works.
Yeah, and if you were here until now, you probably also listened to a previous episode of ours. And if you haven't done so, we do invite you to listen to our last episodes too. If you like it, give us 5 stars because we really, really love that. Makes us very happy. If we can provide any value through our episodes to you, then you can give us back by just giving us 5 stars on any platform of your preference.
Yeah.
And interacting with us. Let us know what kind of formats do you like. Do you like it when we're just the two of us? Do you prefer when we have a guest on? What kind of segments did you like the most? In the last episode, we did a resonance check with Leon. How did you like that? How do you like the quick fires? Do you have input for those? Always very curious about your input. But yeah, what else? What else changed with the podcast? I feel like we're getting more professional with our... Well, we bought mics after the first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And then I feel like it's also much more smooth with the technicalities nowadays.
I think so. Something that I feel like changed personally within me.
Yeah.
That I find myself having this conversation a lot.
Which one?
Like I have became some sort of a deep person that I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. I mean, it's good, but since we always record this stuff and then we edit it and we listen to it and then we listen to it again, we watch the YouTube video and then we make content out of it, you end up listening to the same episode a few times. You kind of absorb so much of it. And then we also, of course, talk about this stuff. And at some point, I found myself like talking about psychology and deep things and vulnerability and like this kind of stuff with everyone. But of course, everybody not welcome it because not everybody wants to have this level up deep conversation, which is also interesting.
You mean now also not only on a podcast, but also like you're having these conversations now everywhere because people are like, oh yeah, let me talk to Sur. She's like, he has a podcast about men's health.
yeah. But also, I don't know, sometimes we go like to a bar and then we see something and I start this deep conversation about something. But after 5 minutes, I'm like, well, probably that was not the vibe. Why did I started it? So this is also sometimes you feel a little bit on the edge that I explored this inner journey so much. And it's not just about the podcast, by the way, because I also do this stuff out of the podcast. I read books about it. We go to the breath work. I do a lot of inner work. But definitely the podcast also affected it. That I feel like I have much more inner work.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
But also sometimes I find it that people don't always appreciate these deep talks.
Yeah. It's super interesting. I have so many thoughts that came up. Inner work.
Share it with us.
Inner work. Yeah, first of all, we said on one of the episodes before as well, like the inner work, outer work. We go to the gym 3 times a week, but we don't do like the same for our mental well-being necessarily. That we actually also do the inner work.
Yeah.
I think everyone knows. Everyone themselves, if you sit with yourself and you look at your life right now, you know if you're happy with the way you're doing things or not. I think.
Correct.
And, yeah. And if not, you might actually miss out on that inner work.
But that's the thing. Not everyone wants the inner work.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about, for a lot of people, it's out of their comfort zone. If you go on a date or if you just go out with a friend to have a coffee or something, not everybody wants to hear about this.
Yeah.
Maybe just because they don't like it. Maybe because they are afraid of it for whatever reason.
Yeah, there can be so many reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also a moment and the time for everything.
Yeah.
And indeed, like some people don't like doing it. I think my point is also that everyone has inner work. And I think why I said like people know if they're happy with what they're doing right now is because I don't believe that without doing any inner work, you can actually be happy. Because basically it means you go to the gym, you are ripped. To the outside world, everything looks perfect, but you're refusing to do any inner work. So you don't know who you are. You don't understand your strengths, weaknesses, your tics, your triggers. So you cannot be your best self, and you can definitely not be your happiest self if you're not doing any inner work. I think for some people, I think it's also inner work can mean going on a run and having your thoughts cursate in your mind, you know, like.
No, for sure. But this is also what we talked about with we talked about with Leon last episode. If you didn't check it out, please do. We talked about emotional release.
Sorry, man. Apologies. Sorry.
No worries. We talked about emotional release and emotional expression and a little bit on what are the differences. And sometimes these stuff are also like a double-edged sword. Like, yeah, if you're the gym bro that you don't have any feelings or anything like that, that you're ripped, maybe you're not also so much in touch with your feelings. I don't want to stereotype anything. You're not necessarily happy, but maybe you're also not necessarily sad. You don't explore your emotions that much. This is for me how it was. But if you open that door of emotional release or emotional expression, your happies are gonna be very happy, but your sads are also gonna be very sad. And if you're angry, you're gonna be very angry. You feel it with a different waves. Like for me, this is how I look at it.
Yeah.
Like the waves really hit you because you're open to it.
But they also learn in the process how to cope with those bigger waves. No?
Yeah.
Like
No, I think so. I do think so.
Yeah.
But that's also a part of it.
For sure. Now, I think everyone's on a different clock. And I think if you're not doing any inner work yet and you're just tuning in here for the first time, don't feel like we're not here for you too. We are. And this is something maybe where the podcast has evolved to, for me at least. It's also, and I hope that we can get some men listening to this or women listening to this to also get into maybe like this exploration phase. If you don't know how to do inner work or what kind of activities will bring you focus, explore. And exploration is something that this podcast is really like also pushing me to do, because I know I can explore new things. Let me try ecstatic dance. Let me try breathwork. Let me try yoga. Let me try singing mantras and emotional release and going to retreats. Like all this exploration is even more fun because I know afterwards I can talk about it either on the podcast or with you or both. It's really fun, and I hope that we can inspire some people as well, because I think this podcast now is not two people, just two men talking about their stuff, but also two people who are both like exploring life, and we're like trying to become our best selves.
Correct.
And get the most out of life, being alive, being happy, growing, having meaningful relationships, etc. And now we are a podcast where two guys are sharing about their experiences in exploring, etc., etc.
It reminds me of the episode we talked a little bit about exploration versus exploitation, if you remember.
Yeah, where you made the AI.
The AI example.
Comparison.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think if you don't explore, you cannot exploit. I was having this conversation with someone else as well, with my housemate actually, about exploration, because I was talking that I'm a curious person by nature, and then she was telling me sometimes curiosity comes with the expense. And also it resonated a little bit with me when we talked with Leon, that he was like, I traveled a lot, I moved a lot of places, I gained a lot of experience, but then for example you lack that close connection and a home base with people because you just went for experiences and you don't have that solid base. But this is a bigger explore per se compared to what you said, but it just opened that door in my mind.
Explore, like try things out, because you never know what works for you. And
you wouldn't know if you don't try.
You can put yourself in new circumstances, environment, sign up for like a class you've never done, and explore, see how you feel about it, how it feels afterwards as well, because that's, I think, when you really feel like if it still feels amazing afterwards, I think then it's probably a nice thing for you to do.
Of thinking that it would be cool to have some activity to do in the podcast. Either, I don't know, I can bring something that you do it, you can bring something that I do, or we do it with the guest. But I think this fact of doing things is also cool, because people at home listening or watching, maybe they can also try it and see what are their results, and if they want to, they're more than welcome to share with us.
So please join us for this exercise.
Yeah. I can explain a little bit what it is.
Okay.
So I got the idea from this book, which I'm holding. If you're watching the video, it's called Healing Through Words by Rupi Kaur, if I'm correct. And he or she, I really don't know the author, but I really like the cover of the book. That's why I bought it. It's about self-healing. And it's a beautiful book. And the whole idea about it is, I think it has 4 sections that you have. It's a she, by the way. I think Dennis
just checked it.
Yeah, it's a woman, and I think she also has another famous book. I think it's called Milk and Honey. Yeah, that one is also famous.
She's Canadian Indian, and she's born the same year as I was. Yeah, cool.
And the book has, I think, 4 different sections about healing, love, hurting, and the other one I don't remember. But then it guides you through these emotions that you can experience through life by exercises. So it, for example, give you a background story. It recommend that you take some time to breathe and think about it. And then it's a writing practice. Then you write about how you felt. Or there's an image, you write about how do you feel about this image. To be honest, it's quite intense.
Okay.
It's a very intense book. I started with the first one. It was about hurting, I think. I wrote non-stop 4 pages.
Wow.
Yeah. But after that, I closed the book and I was like, this is so much.
Okay, if we will write 4 pages now, we'll fast forward through it or cut some parts out so that you can keep following.
But hopefully this is a shorter exercise, let's see. But I will briefly explain it. It's called Visiting My Younger Self. And the idea behind the exercise is that we have a bunch of words, I think around 6-7 words, that I will read the words if people want to do the exercises with us as well. Or maybe it's actually better that first I explain the concept or what is the guideline. So we have a bunch of words, and the idea is to write some sort of a letter or some paragraphs or poem, however you feel more comfortable writing, if any form of writing that you feel comfortable with. And I like the first option, so I would say go with that. So you start writing with intention. You look at one of the words, take your time, think about it, where it brings you, that word, that specific word, where does it bring you? How does it make you feel? So you start the sentences, you try to bring the word early in the paragraph or whatever that you're writing, and then start developing like a story or a memory or however you feel.
Also using the other words in all of that.
First with the one word that you start, and then the book recommends when you felt like that your thoughts are slowing down, or if you don't, maybe there's one word that you have so much to talk about, so you feel free to go more.
Does it matter which word we start with, or we can just?
No, you can start with any word. But when you think your thoughts are slowing down on that one word, or you had enough to talk about already, then it recommends moving to the next word, introduce a new chapter, a paragraph, or continue the previous paragraph with a new word. So this is how it is. The whole exercise has 20 minutes, but of course, if you're at home, feel free to put less or more time if you want.
We'll cut it throughout probably, so make sure to pause the podcast if you're still writing, and then continue when you're ready to go.
Yeah. And if I want to read out the words that are here are laugh, lion, fork, blue, 100, water, butterfly, cloud, gem, and clock.
Mm-hmm. Are we using
Um,
all of those now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
So this is, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 words that we
Mhm.
want to use. And to make it easier, the book starts the exercise with a prompt that goes as, if I could visit my younger self, I would go back to the day when, and then now you can think about it and start writing.
Okay, so I start with if I could visit
If I could visit my younger self,
my younger self,
I would go back to the day when,
I would go back to the day when.
if I could visit
Let's
my younger
write this.
self. That's quite emotional.
So how was that?
At the beginning, it was a little bit off
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like, what am I gonna write with the word clock, or where I'm gonna start? But then, yeah, the story just took me to a day, and I started reliving that day, and then everything made sense. Just the words were coming out, and then I really enjoyed it, even though it was emotional, but I liked it.
You wanna read us a part, like a paragraph, a bit of it?
It's a story, so I have to read the whole story.
Okay. Yeah, actually,
it's
I did.
connected.
I did something similar, but my story is more open-ended. Like you can stop it anywhere.
Okay, well,
I don't know.
maybe both of us can read it.
Okay, and then we can see how we did it differently. Should I start? You wanna start?
Go ahead.
Okay. If I could visit my younger self, I would go back to the day when we went to the beach with my family. I was around 12 years old, and with my 9-year-old brother, we were snorkeling around, although we couldn't see anything. It was very funny to us as we swam through the water. And all of a sudden, we realized we swam to the naked beach area. I don't know if I wrote a comedy or a story. I don't know.
Okay.
The water was not blue at all, but still, we think of water when we hear the color blue. Or the sky, actually. Blue as the sky. Although, that's also not necessarily true. there can be clouds and water is actually blue when it reflects a blue sky. ... A lion appears at the horizon. At least he remembers his father always called him that, a lion. Sometimes he does not feel like a lion though. Lions can cry too. He laughs. A butterfly flies by and is looking joyful, flying in inconsistent patterns. The butterfly is not feeling happy at all though. He just lost his friend and is looking for him everywhere. This is stressful. Tick, tick, tick. That's the clock. That's time. Goodbye. That's my story. I actually read the whole thing.
I liked it.
I used only half of the words, and when I wrote sky, I realized I'm not using cloud. But yeah.
How did you feel about your story?
I see myself in some of it. I mean,
So it wasn't based on a true story, or
yeah, the first part was.
Okay.
So like we used to go, like I remember this very vividly. My brother and me in the water snorkeling, and all of a sudden we look up and everyone's naked, and we're like, "Holy shit, what's going on?" And then we started laughing because it was a naked beach, and it was the first time at the naked beach, I think, for us. It's just very interesting experience with being naked.
Yeah. How was it with the lion?
And then I think the lion was me, and I do see a lot of lion energy in myself, also wolf energy, like those type of things. But then at the same time I think of, okay, but lions can get sad too. That's fine. And butterflies always look happy, but they're also not always happy, It's like, I think that was a bit about, it's not always inside what you see on the outside and vice versa. And even though the lion can be the king of the jungle, he can also have a soft side where he's with his family, for example.
How do you relate with the butterfly in the story?
I don't know. I think I wanted to introduce a level of randomness because I think generally I do that. Sometimes I do connect a lot of things to each other, but sometimes it can seem random. And then I was thinking lions are, and I wanted to bring in another animal, and it was also a word here. And the lion projects a certain energy, and then I looked at, butterfly. What kind of energy does a butterfly send? And I thought they look very happy when they're flying around. But I don't know if they're happy. It could be that they're like stressed out of their mind. They look
pretty.
I lost my friend. Where is he? Like looking everywhere. Could be.
But it's interesting that you say butterflies are happy. You cannot see a butterfly. Emotional. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
But I don't. And it's assigned as a sign of happiness. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean mosquitoes fly around too.
But I think they are happy.
Because they're like, I'm gonna suck your blood.
They are. I liked it though. It had the element of you, a little bit creativity, some cut with the lion and the butter, and all of a sudden butterfly.
Yeah, no, it was very a nice experience, and like throughout it, I just felt like I could just keep writing actually.
Yeah.
And because I was not so worried about the content, and I just look at a word, something pops up in my head, I write it down, make it a story. And I think the key is to just start writing and not overthink it.
Yeah, that is correct.
And I do see myself in this story a bit. Also, I don't know, I feel like I introduced a little bit of comedy as well. And that's also part of me somehow. Okay. Love that. What about yours? I'm really curious if you did it the same way or not.
We'll see. Okay. By the way, my handwriting is terrible, so at some point if I stop to read my own handwriting,
that's horrible.
Very possible that happens. Okay, so my story. If I could visit my younger self, I would go back to the day when I couldn't wait to go to the school on a Wednesday because we had a physical training session and I always enjoyed playing football with my friends. I miss the laughs that we had because they are gone now. I came home and I thought about a favorite movie of mine, The Lion King. The skies are blue, but I stay inside. But instead of going outside and play, I stay home. I feel tired. I feel tired, so I stay home and eat some fruits with my fork. The fork that my mom paid 100 reals for. For us to eat and nourish. She brings me water too. I feel refreshed and I have butterflies in my stomach. Having her with me makes the cloudy days better. Because she makes me feel special, like a unique gem. I hope everyone get to experience the same feeling in their life. With the clock ticking, I notice that my time has came to an end and I have to wake up. Wake up from the dream of my childhood to an adult life full of have-tos and must-dos, broken friendship and everlasting trying to make connections. I wish I could go back to the days and just hug each one of those people one last time before waking up.
Ah, deep, man.
Yeah.
I also feel like, wow, yeah. What we have in common, I think, it's all that it's always we're showing two sides.
What?
We're showing both the happy and the sad.
Yeah.
I felt a bit more sadness than yours.
Maybe. There was some appreciation and sadness for the things that maybe I value but I don't have as much as I want. But also grateful, for example, for feeling like that with my mother, with the moments I laughed with my friends. And the first part, it was true. I loved playing football with my friend, and every time, we just couldn't wait to change our dress, get into the football field, just kick the ball for 2 hours and non-stop. It was one of my favorite days. The first part was a little bit difficult because I was trying to get in the rhythm of writing, but then like a story kicked in my brain, and then I was like, okay, this is what I want to develop on. And I was happy at the end.
So how did this journey, how do you feel now, other than like you just said like happy, but like what does it do for you to get a set of words and write a story out of it? Like what does that do for you?
I feel very zen. Even though it was a short exercise, but as I said, I enjoy writing, and for me it's like singing. But the different is, in singing I'm singing the songs from somebody else's lyrics, but with writing it feels like I'm writing the song from my own lyrics. Like that's how it feels for me. And I do love creative writing and stuff. Like this is a way to express myself, and I do feel like this is the way I express. And you can add also crazy elements. The part about the Lion King was true. I did love Lion King. So I didn't add a lot of element of surprise, but I tried to make it homey, make it feel like home, like with the fork and the mother to nourish you. That's how it was.
I'm like, now a thought popped up in my head between the activity versus the outcome. I think this is a good example of a thing where the activity is more important than the outcome. Like doing it does more for you than afterwards reading it.
I agree.
Like we did both, so I think the doing was the one that makes me feel zen in this case.
I feel the same way with painting. Like I don't care what I get out of it, but I enjoy the activity of just doing it. Because for me, I'm not gonna show it off to the world to be appreciated, but I enjoy the activity.
I think this is the best artists also start from this place. They're doing it because they love it, not because they want to show it to someone.
I agree.
Or anything in life, whatever you do as an occupation, even if you're not an artist. I think if you like doing it,
you will become famous if you want to.
I don't know, or at least good at it. Or
you will become good at it.
Really cool. I hope some people at home also paused and wrote down a story for themselves. I think we'll just play a fast forward with some music under it. Let's see afterwards.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Hope you enjoyed this exercise as well. We're curious to also hear about your stories. And there's this function, you'll see it in the not in the comments, in the description under this episode. There's a link to Spotify podcasters. It's anchor.com/something. And you can click on that link and send us a voice message. And you don't have to say your name. If you say your name, we'll take that in as well. But you don't have to say your name. You can do this anonymously and share your story with us, for example. And we might play it on the next episode or one of the following episodes. We also, you can always send us a voice message. Doesn't have to be the story necessarily, but this is a thing that you can use it for. You can also send us any of your questions that you have, or suggestions, other activities that we can do here.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I really enjoyed it. Let's do this
again. That's nice.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, I think that's been it. Thank you for joining us again. Make sure to also listen to the other episodes, and we will see you in the next one. That's been it. Thank you so much for joining again.
See you later.
Bye-bye.